So threats to salmon, and I'm speaking of the estuary, the bay, because San Francisco Bay is actually an estuary. And while people, I've always think of salmon, we know where they're anadromous fish. They live in both fresh and salt water, different parts of their lives. And so you think about the river ecosystem where they're born and where they return to spawn. And you think about the ocean where they go out and feed and get big. Um, and people catch them in both of those places. But a really important environment for salmon that doesn't seem to get emphasized as much is the estuary, where the river and the freshwater and the saltwater mix, and it's semi-enclosed body of water like San Francisco Bay. So the salmon young will come down the river and come out into the bay, and they're getting used to this increasing salinity, and eating plankton, small things that are living in the estuary, on eventually making their way out to sea. When they come back, when the salmon come back, they are looking for the pulses of fresh water, specifically from their river, because they can actually smell, like the chemical smell, of their river. So when they're coming back in, they're looking for that freshwater pulse from the river. So unfortunately, this is one of the threats to salmon, is that there is much, much less fresh water coming out into San Francisco Bay in recent years. Part of that is due to water diversions in the Central Valley, mainly for agriculture and for water use in Southern California. So the water is diverted all the way down to Southern California, all the way through the Central Valley. So there's increasing amounts of fresh water that's been diverted. Dams, of course, about on the rivers. And to add to that, we have climate change. So climate change is really like the number one thing, because many impacts on salmon are actually the result of climate change. So, for example, less fresh water coming down the rivers in the first place because there's less snow melt. So drought is one consequence of climate change. Increasing CO2 in the atmosphere, which causes climate change, is also causing ocean acidification. So the lowering of the pH in the ocean. And that is having impacts on at least the things that salmon eat, if not the salmon themselves. We don't know for sure yet. Also sea level rise. So the warming of the ocean is causing the sea level to rise, which will change the habitat in the estuary for the young salmon, as well as the salmon returning to spawn. So climate change is definitely a big